Welcome to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm Jaime Agostino, your host. On this show, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today on Financial Minds, we're starting a 3-week series dedicated to work culture. Who better to be our guest for this series than none other than Joe Bertotto, Chief Culture Officer for Vizo Financial. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Jamie. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So today on the podcast, we're going to be focusing on finding the right fit, modeling a job to the person. But before we get started, Joe, you've been the Chief Culture Officer for approximately 9 years. In that role, what are you responsible for?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. It really is kind of helping everybody think about how do we create an environment where people get to come to work every day versus have to come to work. And, there's a big difference between having to go to your job and kind of dreading it versus getting to go to your job and looking forward to it. So, we try to do things that spark that sense of getting people to want to come to work every day.
All right. So as far as finding the right fit, molding a job to a person, can you explain what you mean by this?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We hire people and then we force fit them into a job, right? So we all get hired into a position, and that position comes with certain expectations, and there's a job description. And then we try to force the person into the job. And the reality is, I think for most of us, it's hard to be great at every aspect of our job, right? There are parts of our job that we're good at and we really love. And there are parts of our job that we are good at. And if we could stop doing them tomorrow, that'd be okay, right? But we're smart and we figure out how to get good at things. And then there are parts of our job that drain us of energy, right? We might not feel comfortable with the result. We may just be bored by it. And so the idea of kind of this right fit in molding a person to a job is, instead of trying to force fit a person into a job, it's really thinking about, how do I mold the job to the person? So what are the little things I can do as a leader to mold a job to a person so they're doing more of the things they're good at and enjoy?
All right. Do you have any examples of how you've molded the job to the person?
Yeah. So, we have a small team at the corporate. There are just 3 of us. But, on our team, for instance, one person, based on kind of the way she writes and communicates and the warmth that she has and kind of the accepting nature, she does 90% of our communication. So any team communication she'll do because she's really good at it and she really enjoys it. She's also the person, because she's got this kind of global sense of the company. So, it's not about silos. It's about how are we all kind of interconnected. She does things like the Person of the Day series. So in the organization, pretty much all of our employees kind of filmed a 10-minute, this is who I am. And they had random questions to answer. And it was kind of a fun little get to know you exercise. But for her, it was great because she got to touch base with everybody in the company and spread the word of the corporate and make people feel really special and seen. So that part was another thing that we kind of molded to her. We just started a series called Department of the Week. So now we're interviewing departments to have them kind of tell what they do. And we've got that series that's going to start to run. And just, again, short little video clips over the course of a week about each department, just to let others in the corporate know exactly what they do, what their challenges are, what they're faced with. But for her, it's a great way to touch base with people, to kind of really bring the company together. Another thing that she does is our onboarding program, because she creates this kind of really warm, welcoming, upbeat environment for people. So she's a great person for any new employee to meet with early in their tenure at the company. And then the other person on our team is, our kind of researcher. She loves to do research. She's just a super curious person. She's fascinated by things. So, she'll do a tremendous amount of research, and so whatever projects we're working on, they start off with her doing the research for those projects to get us grounded on what's out there, and what are others doing, or what has been done in the past. She's also really intuitive and keen on kind of understanding and hearing what people don't say when they talk. So we've also asked her to do some of our what we call service hours, but they're hours each month that all of our employees participate in that talk about things like teamwork or our values, or kind of getting to know people or talking about strengths, all of that. And she also connects with all of our managers to talk about their development plans. So if people need help with creating development plans for people, she'll do all the research on those things, right? And then work with the manager, because she really, one of her real core principles is, if I can be a benefit to help other people, then I feel great. And so that idea of helping other people and helping them develop is a real energizer for her. So she does that. So all of these little things we just created, right? They aren't part of anybody's job description, but we created these things for people. And they're just a few examples of, how we try to mold the job to the person, because the other part of it is these people are really good at these things. So then the productivity of the team is better, right? Because they're better at those things than, say, I am. So they do them more efficiently, and they're far more effective. So we win as a department, and each person wins as an individual.
All right. So, me as a manager, how can I ask people to do something that isn't their job? I mean, won't they push back?
Yeah, my experience and the experience of people we work with is no, because no one doesn't like doing the things they like to do, right? Like, no one's pushing back on that. The difficulty comes when we ask people to do things that they don't like to do, right? That's when people push back. But, really, when you're asking somebody to do something they enjoy, they're usually okay with that. And kind of the other part of that is, as managers, we need to be asking people those questions about, and understanding, what are the parts of your job that you really enjoy? Are there things you've not tried that you'd like to try, to see if those tasks or responsibilities are things that give you a lot of energy, right? So it's kind of working with the person, understanding what they really like and enjoy, observing them in action, talking to them about things that they've done where they've been successful. Like, we can be great as managers at debriefing things maybe that don't go so well. And when it goes well, we just kind of pass by that. But really spending time talking through, what made that so good for you? What did you really enjoy? Try to understand that, right? And then look for things that you can then push that person toward, that fit their strengths and what they really enjoy doing.
Well, what if the task you're asking them isn't in their job description? Does that cause a problem?
It doesn't. Now the one thing you'd probably want to do is coordinate some of this with your HR function, but the reality is, if people like things, they're not usually opposed to doing them. And if you've really created a team environment where people feel good about coming to work and feel good about being on the team and want to support and help each other and see the team and the credit union be successful, people are usually not concerned about what's in the job description. Frankly, if you ask probably 100 people to describe their job description, I think probably 98% of those people would not be able to tell you what's in their job description.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
What if a person doesn't want to do what I'm asking them to do?
Yeah. So I think the question then starts to become, is this really something that they're good at and enjoy? Right. Because I think that's less likely to happen. Now, I mean, in the rare case it can, where people, somebody's like, I don't want to do that. And I think the question is why? Why is that? Why don't you want to do that? What's up? Just trying to understand, not to ask in an accusatory way, but just to understand, why is that something that you don't want to do? I really thought that's something you enjoyed, right? So So I think it's having that conversation, and talking through that. I'm not a big proponent of forcing people to do things. So if somebody doesn't want to do it, that's, okay. Especially as we're talking about things that may be different than what their everyday job is. But I'd certainly have that conversation, because again, as a leader, I just think about, did I misread that situation? Is that something I think they like and they don't? Or is it they just maybe are overwhelmed at the moment and don't have time to do it now? And maybe, it's something down the road they can do. So I think it's exploring that a little bit with people, and just trying to understand, not being judgmental or upset about it, but just really trying to understand, because I think that creates a feeling of care within the team, right? I'm trying to do things that really fit who you are who you are as a person, and play to your strengths. And so if I missed that in some way, how'd I do that? What did I not do right there? Or why is it that you might not want to do this if it is a strength? Like, let's talk about that. What's behind that no? And I think that's a good conversation to have, because it can unearth some things and really get people to see and understand the level of kind of individualization and care you're trying to put forth as a manager.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me. I mean, the one thing I would say is, the key, really, the secret key to leadership to me is, you've got to individualize your leadership to the person. Everybody is different. And so how do I, as a leader, try to understand that everybody's different and I'm different from them, right? So that makes it even more complicated as a manager. But how do I individualize? How do I understand a person's preferences, what they like, what they don't like, what they're good at, what they're not good at? And then really work with them. Because if I can get kind of their individual needs kind of collaborated with the functional needs of the business, I think that's where real success comes in. I think the other thing is, don't think that because somebody is good at something, it's a strength. Because again, we all get really good at things that we don't care about. If we stop doing them tomorrow, it'd be okay, right? So it's also that idea that not everything somebody is good at is a strength. The hallmark is a strength is enjoying what you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you like what you're hearing from Joe, then I'd like to invite you to his upcoming webinar, the Leadership Challenge. Join Joe, who is certified coach in the Leadership Challenge, where he's going to provide some insight on how to get the most as you lead your team. Learn more about this webinar and how to register by visiting our website, www.vfccu.org. As always, thanks for listening, and make it a great day.